Yeah, once again, we're doing readings from the Science of Mind magazine, the Daily Guides, and I'm always a bit conflicted when I do these readings because, yeah, the Science of Mind magazine is pretty well intended for everybody. The Daily Guides are sort of that way too, but in a way, they're directed more towards people in new thought, Science of Mind, Unity, Divine Science. But when I do these readings, I know they go out to people of all belief systems and no belief system. So I try to change the ratings a little bit, or if I don't change them, I comment on them so that they can apply to anybody. Because I think these principles that are being given to us are not just for people who've got a particular belief system or a particular stream of beliefs, if you will, but they're really good for anybody. So please bear that in mind when you listen to them. They're really intended for anybody, at least in my humble opinion, and that's the way I intend them. Okay. So sometimes I change the words around a little bit to make sure that they're more applicable to anybody who wants to watch them. And the idea of these readings, from my standpoint, is not to try and change your belief system. It's to actually kind of teach you how to believe and not necessarily what to believe, because Ernest Holmes, when he produced the Science of Mind material over decades, he didn't intend to change anybody's belief system. He just wanted to help people have a better life. And he didn't care whether they were Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, whatever. He just wanted them to be better at what they were, just a better individual. And it was irrelevant to him as to what religious stream or no religious stream that they followed, because these readings can apply to anybody of any faith system or no faith system. So bear that in mind as I go through this. Okay. This one's called Back to Basics, and it's talking about your basics of science of mind, but it's basics just getting back to our humanity, if you like. The first quote is from Words That Heal Today, page 169. And it says, the universal mind responds to us by co-responding to our mental approach to it. In other words, it's done into you as you believe. And the same thing with the second quote from the Science of Mind textbook on page 46. We're dealing with intelligence, capital I, and we should deal with it intelligently. In other words, we should expect to get a response to our thoughts and feelings, our prayers. And then Reverend Margaret goes on to say, if we are practicing students of metaphysics, we could reasonably ask about the personal need to go back to basics on a regular basis. And I'm going to unpack this a little bit afterwards. If oneness with God is our belief, how can we ever be apart from the presence? The wise might answer, yes, but how does oneness reveal itself? He says, is this an idea that sounds good in prayer but starts mostly on the lips? Or is it an experience carried with us daily throughout our very physical responses? Life is wonderful, exacting, challenging, inspiring, terrifying, enlightening, and depressing. Sometimes many of these things taking place all in the same day. It would not be far-fetched to think that the demands of physical living can lead us from the foundation of well-being, lead us away from the foundation of well-being, at least from time to time, if not regularly. Hence the need for regular returns to the simple, basic movements. During the day, we could stop briefly, perhaps while walking or riding in a car with a friend, to silently check in with our inner spirit, our inner self. Right? Even a few seconds of active connection, excuse me, with our inner core can add a quick, calm settling to a day that demands many choices. Lengthy times for prayer and reflection are always a good part of spiritual hygiene, but what of the rest of the day? Tiny remembrances of the divine connection can always bring refreshment and will do so at every turn. These are inner renewals that money cannot buy. So, primarily, Margaret Stortz is speaking to people who are familiar with New Thought principles in general and Science of Mind in particular. But the way I look at it is this: we know that meditation and quiet time and deep breathing, periods of deep breathing, are very good for us. We absolutely know this. And if we believe that there's a power greater than we are, then we can tune into this power, and by our thoughts and feelings, we can actually produce things in this material existence of ours. So, but even to those who really don't think that that's true, they can still gain benefit from just going into those quiet times and just spending some time alone. It's always good. You don't have to be a monk or a nun in a monastery or a convent locked away to do these things. You don't have to be a hermit in a cave. I guess there aren't too many of those these days, but in the past they were. Hermits went off, men and women, and lived alone and lived a life of prayer. No, the the Sikhs actually believe that we really should be participants in the world and don't set ourselves off and just go off and spend our lives in prayer. They believe that we actually can balance this out, that we can actually have a spiritual existence and a material existence woven in to each other. So there's no difference. And I would describe this as just taking time out to allow ourselves to relax and to just quieten our thoughts and just allow things to kind of settle down. And then, if you're a believer like I am, you can put your thoughts and feelings into the universal mind and get results, because we do get results. It's pretty cool. But even those who don't are going to get, they're going to get results such as feeling better physically, mentally. They're going to actually be more alive. So these are really good practices. Throughout the 20th century, we had a lot of people who taught it's done unto you as you believe, and some taught it from a spiritual perspective, which Ernest Holmes did, and other New Thought leaders did. People, yeah, like Emmett Fox and so on. But others didn't. They didn't teach it from it, even though they were Christians themselves. They didn't teach it from a spiritual or religious perspective. You could read a lot of the self-help literature. Read Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. It's just this phrased in another way. He just doesn't bring God into it. So bottom line is these principles work. And I think it's always good to take a break during the day and just have some time to yourself. And then it's always good. And then if, like me, you pray, pray. If you don't, then just get on with the rest of your day. And that's how it works. So anyway, those are my 10 cents worth on this whole thing. So the affirmation: I'm the place where God stands forth in the world as me. If, like me, you believe that we're expressions of one source, you could say, I am the place where the one source stands in the world as me. I turn my awareness to oneness in small and large ways throughout the day and find my light. I turn my awareness to oneness in small and large ways throughout the day and I find my light. And talking about finding light, there will be more readings tomorrow. Reverend Lisa at 9:15ish in the morning, me somewhere around about 5 in the evening. We'll have our Sunday service tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and it will also be recorded and it will be put up on Facebook later on. So Creative Life Spiritual Center, it will be live tomorrow. YouTube later in the day. You can just tune into it. So just in summary, it's always good to take a break from the cares of the world. Whatever you're doing, there's always a way to do it, even if it's for a minute, but ideally for somewhat longer. And just refresh yourself, refresh your body and your spirit, and you'll feel better and you perform better. And guess what? People around you will notice it. So it's always good to take these breaks. I call them spiritual breaks. You can call them mental breaks if you like. It really doesn't matter. Until next time, namaste.